No niin.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the XR Best Practice webinar. I'm Petra Nurmela, I'm Project Manager of ProtoXR project. And today we will hear several presentations about
Yeah. Yes.
Here is the schedule of the day. So first we have Tommi, and after that Jemina, Juri, Joakim, Henry, Senja. In final we have feedback, and we hope everyone fills the feedback form, and if you do so, after that you will receive this best XR practice booklet. Okay, let's start. Tommi, you are welcome.
Näistä sivuilta. Niin. Ei tarvitse painaa mistään, menee vaan seuraava.
Joo. Eli nimi on Tommi Kiihenmies ja olen Lapin yliopistossa projektipäällikkönä ja puhun sitten VR Game Industry Benchmarking in Nordics, ja tämä on sitten suomeksi, eli puhun VR-peliteollisuuden benchmarkingista Pohjoismaissa. Ja sitten ihan alkuun, että mitä tämä VR nyt sitten oikein on. Eli XR, eli Extended Reality, eli jatkettu todellisuus on kattotermi VR:lle, AR:lle ja MR:lle. Eli VR on sitten näistä tämä virtuaalitodellisuus, joka on tietokonesimulaation tuottama kokemus, jossa käytetään silmien edessä olevia näyttöjä ja sitten asennon seurantaa, jotta käyttäjä saa immersiivisen ja mukaansa tempaavan kokemuksen virtuaalimaailmasta. Ja sitten on AR ja MR, mitkä on sitten muita, mutta niitä ei käsitellä tässä niin sen enempää. Sitten tästä benchmarkkauksesta, eli kävin kahdella reissulla, eli niin toisella oli täällä Tampereella ja sitten Uumajassa. Ja tämä benchmarkkaus siis meinaa sitä, että käynnissä niin vertaillaan sitten johonkin toiseen. Eli mä sitten vertailin sitten siellä sitä peliteollisuutta ja sitten Suomen peliteollisuutta keskenään muun muassa. Ja täällä Academic Mindtrek, mikä oli sitten Tampereella, niin se oli tämmöinen akateeminen konferenssi, missä oli työpajoja, postereita, demoja ja esityksiä eri niin kuin tutkimusaiheista. Ja sitten teemoina siellä oli muun muassa ihmisen ja tietokoneen vuorovaikutus, XR-pelit ja pelillistäminen ja AI. Ja tuossa ylempi kuva oli siellä posteritilaisuudesta ja nyt oli myös työpajassa myös mukana. Ja tuo alempi kuva oli saatteesta itsellä ainakin, mikä jäi niin muistiin sitten siellä yhtenä niin tutkimusaiheena, mitä esiteltiin siellä, niin oli semmoinen niin mindfulness ja tutkittiin tämmöisessä VR-pelissä käytännössä ja sitten siellä oli niin semmoista rentoutumista ja sen sellaista, mitä siinä tutkittiin. Ja sitten tämä toinen oli Arctic Game Dev, eli Dev meinaa development, eli niin käytännössä pelikehitystä. Ja tämä oli tosiaan Uumajassa ja tämä kesti 3 päivää ja tämä oli tämmöinen business to business tapahtuma. Ja siellä oli sitten paneelikeskusteluja, esityksiä ja työpajoja. Mutta itse ei näihin työpajoihin oikein päässyt mukaan, kun ne oli kaikki ruotsiksi. niin se ei oikein itselle ollut, mutta sitten nämä muut oli ja siellä oli sitten myös pelialan studioiden pelien esittelyitä ja sitten niin kuin mahdollisille sijoittajille. Ja siellä sitten oli myös olin tosiaan Lapin AMK:n kanssa siellä, semmoisen pikkupoppoon kanssa, ja sitten siellä oli tämmöinen opiskelijapoppo oli tehnyt tämmöisen velhola-pelin, ja siellä sitten yritti saada sijoittajia sitten sille pelilleensä. Sitten vähän tästä peliteollisuudesta Pohjoismaissa, eli niin kuin Suomessa on paljon tunnettuja pelejä, niin kuin Angry Birds, kaikki tietää sen, Flatout, joskus ehkä tietää sen, niin tämmöisiä on niin kuin paljon pelejä, paljon tunnettuja pelejä Suomessa, ja sitten ehkä niin kuin mitä mä itse sain sieltä reissulta selville, niin on lähinnä tämä niin kuin pelien tekeminen on niin kuin on tuolla niin kuin Etelä-Suomea, ja sitten niin kuin pohjoisessa on niin kuin hyvin vähän pelituotantoa, että se on niin kuin samalla lailla kuin Ruotsissakin, että siellä se keskittyy lähinnä just Etelä-Ruotsiin, että siellä Pohjois-Ruotsissa on kyllä niin kuin about 70 pelistudioa, mutta se on tietysti vähän isompikin alue. No tuossa India-pelejä kanssa olin maininnut, mitä niin kuin on paljon niin kuin tällaisia pikkufirmoja, että ei ole kovin paljon tämmöisiä isoja firmoja Suomessa. Tai on niitäkin tietysti, mutta joo, sitten ehkä seuraavaa, niin sitten vähän ihan nopea katsaus tämmöiseen VR-pelin kehitykseen, eli tämmöisiin niin kuin VR-mekaniikkoihin, mitä kannattaa niin kuin huomioida sitten niin kuin siinä pelin tekemisessä, eli on niin kuin liiketunnistus, käsien käyttö ja liikkuminen, mitkä on aivan erilaisia kuin muissa peleissä. Sitten myös käyttöliittymä tietysti on aivan erilainen. Ja myös pitäisi huomioida niin motion sickness, eli jos kaikki niin kuin liikkuminen ja tällainen pitää huomioida myös, että niin kuin, ei sitten niin kuin tule sitä pahoinvointia siinä pelin aikana. Niin kuin mä tuossa aiemminkin mainitsin, noi Unreal Engine ja Unity, eli ne on ehkä silleen helpoimpia tälle tuotannolle, kun ne on alkuun ilmaisia, ja sitten kuvasta kun alkaa se peli tuottamaan tai mikä sitten onkaan siinä niin kuin sovellus tai näin alkaa sitten tuottamaan, niin sitten vasta ne alkaa pulttaa rahaa. Joo, ja sitten vähän sitten VR niin pelin tekemisestä vielä lisää, eli olin tosiaan tehnyt tämmöisen niin kuin, tai oikeastaan demo enemmän kuin tätä ei ole tuiltattu, eli ei ole tehty valmiiksi, missä tein niin kuin itsellään tosiaan niin kuin väitöskirja tulossa, ja tämä oli sitten siihen yhteen tutkimukseen tämmöinen niin VR-demo, missä sitten pääsi tuhoamaan tämmöisiä lohikäärmeen munia miekalla. Ja siinä on mitä on vähän mallinnellut ja munia sun muita, ja vasemmalla sitten on vähän sitä koodipuoltakin, mitä sitten tein siihen. Ja joo. Niin sitten vähän vielä vähän eri aiheeseen, eli vähän ehkä pohjustusta sitten näihin seuraaviin esityksiin, niin mitä ollaan täällä yliopistolla tosiaan niin kuin saatu selville, niin miten VR pystytään hyödyntämään, niin käydään niin kuin 3 tasoa, että ykköstasossa on tämmöiset niin helpommat ja halvemmat ja nopeammat niin tapa niin tuottaa sitä VR-sisältöä. Ja sitten kolmostasolla taas on sitten niin on hitaampaa ja kalliimpaa, mutta sitten se lopputuotos on sitten myös huomattavasti monimutkaisempi ja niin monipuolisempi. Ja joo, ja sitten tämä eka taso, eli staattiset VR-kokemukset, eli nämä on tämmöisiä 360-kuvia ja videoita, ja siinä noin molemmat on 360-kuvia, että niistä sitten niin kuin rakentuu se rakentuu sitten se kuva, mutta sitten siitä nyt ei nyt enempää niin miten se rakentuu, mutta kuitenkin niin se on edullinen ja helppo niin nopea toteuttaa, eli käytännössä jollakin on se 360-kamera, hän ottaa ne kuvat ja se on siinä käytännössä. Ja se on tosiaan helppo ja nopea katsella, eli ei välttämättä tarvii niitä VR-laseja, että voi olla myös ihan ruudullakin. Esimerkiksi niin Google Maps on täynnä tämmöisiä Street View-kuvia, missä sitten pääsee, tai siellä Street Viewssä on tämmöisiä 360-kuvia. Sitten kakkostasolla tehdään sitten niistä 360-kuvista interaktiivisia VR-kokemuksia, eli niistä tehdään tämmöisiä niin kuin virtuaalikierroksia, ja tuossa nyt 2 ylimpää kuvaa, niin on tämmöinen Arctic Snow Hotellin kanssa yhteistyössä tehty tämmöinen 360-kierros, ja siellä näkyy kanssa vähän sitä, tuossa keskimmäisessä kuvassa näkyy sitä niin karttaa, että missä kaikkialla voi käydä katsomassa. Ja sitten myös on tämmöisiä niin valintapohjaisia simulaatioita, missä sitten pystyy vaikka auton väriä vaihtamaan tai jotain materiaaleja vaihtamaan ja näkee sen 3D-mallin sitten siinä edessä ja niin kuin omilla silmillään siinä sitten. Ja no, tässä nyt on yksi esimerkki, että 3D-vista ja millä täälläkin tuotettu näitä yliopistolla siis ennen kuin muissa hankkeissa. Sitten 3. taso, eli reaaliikeiset ja dynaamiset VR-kokemukset. Ja näissä niin kuin aiemmissa oltiin käynyt vaan paikallaan, katseltiin niitä 360-kuvia, niin nyt sitten pääsee itse siellä käppäilemään siellä maailmassa. Eli nämä tehdään pelimoottoreilla. Eli tässä nyt on esimerkkeinä taas tämä Unreal ja Unity, millä pystytään tekemään tämmöisiä niin kuin monipuolisia kokemuksia. Eli näitä sitten pystytään räätälöimään sen yrityksen tai organisaation tai kenenkä tahansa tarpeisiin. Ja pystytään niin tämmöisiä monimutkaisia simulaatioita tuottamaan. Ja tuossa nyt on alempi kuva sitä pelistä, mikä mä tein, tai demosta. Ja ylempänä on niin sellainen demo, mikä oli vanhaa Rovaniemeä ja oli kanssa sillä Unrealilla tehty ja siellä pystyi sitten käppäilemään ja katselemaan sitten vanhaa Rovaniemeä. Joo, mutta kiitokset.
Do you have any questions? Onko kysymyksiä? Voidaan nyt vastata, jos on. If there's no questions, jos ei ole kysymyksiä, niin siirrytään seuraavaan esittäjään. Niin. Nyt ei ole. Jaa.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Yamanakali and this presentation will be in English, and I will talk a bit more about the 360 virtual tours. Okay, so Tommy already told us a little bit about 360 virtual tours, but in summary, they're a digitally presented interactive environment, typically created using 360 images and videos. Creating them with 360 images or with images and videos captured with a 360 camera, so a camera that takes footage with one photo from a 360 field of view. But they could also be created combining regular photos taken with a regular camera to create this kind of panorama image. In these virtual tours, users can explore the contents of the tour from a first-person viewpoint. So as they're taken with a camera, when you're viewing the image, it's kind of like your head is where the camera was, kind of viewpoint. These virtual tours can vary in interactability, but common interactions can be buttons, for example, to move from one image to the next. You can scroll and swipe the images and zoom in and zoom out. And I had a video on this slide, but it doesn't seem to work. So we will skip that then. Oh, maybe now. Okay. Nope. Okay. Well, anyway, this video that I was going to show is also shown on our YouTube channel, on the same channel that we're streaming from. So if you're interested in later, you can see some short videos about some projects we've done. However, these 360 virtual tours, usually the process is, I'll go through a bit later, but they can be easy ways to present and show spaces and environments in interactive ways. So you've probably seen a 360 virtual tour used, for example, if you wanted to view some kind of apartment or house. A lot of realtors have been using this technology before. And if you're wondering whether you could make a 360 virtual tour, then probably yes, as it doesn't require much technical expertise in comparison to, for example, a virtual environment that's 3D modeled. But there are some things that you need to take into account when creating one of these. So I'll be going into them next. So taking 360 photos and videos. I'll be going through how to kind of use a 360 camera to make this, but however, you could edit an image that could be used in a 360 virtual tour using regular photos and edit it on, for example, Photoshop, or you could illustrate one or other examples, but I'll be going through kind of checklists for using a 360 camera. On the right here, you can see an example of a 360 camera I've used. So this is the Insta360 Pro 2. Everyone always asks about the price. I've included it there for you, but there's a lot of other 360 cameras also that are a lot cheaper and can be a lot smaller. So a very common one also from this Insta360 brand is kind of smaller than your smartphone kind of size. So there's a lot of different options you can do. However, when taking a 360 photo, it's important to think about the height. So as I said, when you're viewing the 360 tour, the viewer is kind of like seeing it from the point of view of the camera. So it's important to set the height of the camera at like a normal height, unless you want the viewer to feel like they're kind of flying in the air. So I've found that if I set the camera kind of at the height of my head, usually people viewing this later will think that it's really high up. So generally, I find it better to set it at kind of a lower height than regular viewing height. Usually, it's good to use a tripod if you're taking this kind of images of spaces or environments. So just make sure the tripod is straight. In this Insta360 camera, you need, if I remember correctly, 7 memory cards. So it's good to make sure you have all the ones, make sure your camera lenses are clean. And one thing that I learned the hard way is making sure that the camera isn't reflected in any windows or mirrors. So it kind of breaks the immersion or illusion of the virtual tour if you're viewing it and then you can see the camera that the images was taken on. Also, taking these 360 videos, obviously depending on what you're using it for, but generally when wanting to showcase a space or environment, perhaps you don't want to be in the photo that you're taking, then you need to kind of hide and take in this Insta360 Pro 2 camera, you take the photo kind of on your phone, so you can walk away from the camera and hide behind a door or something and then take the photo. However, you might want to take into account, like, do you want the space to be empty, or do you want to have some people in the space while you take the photo? It can make it look a bit more busy or something like that. However, these images, they can be edited afterwards. So if you take a 360 photo and then afterwards you decide you don't want to have people's faces in it, or this kind of car registry shields or something else, you can blur or edit the photos afterwards. You could also have some kind of more artistic takes on these 360 photos as well in these tours if you wanted to. And obviously take into account weather. So if you're using electronics like this camera, might not be the best in the rain. Yeah, so in this presentation, I'll be going through making a 360 virtual tour using 3D Vista Virtual Tour Pro, but there's a lot of different programs you could use. Some examples of programs that I know is this 3D Vista Virtual Tour Pro, there's this Pano 2VR, and also Matterport is very common. In these programs, generally you take the material, so you've taken your 360 photos or your videos, you drag them into the software, and into these materials you can then add your different interactions. So the programs generally call them hotspots, and they could be these buttons that open more information. It could be a button that lets you move into the next image or start some kind of video or audio or something of the sort. But it's good to be kind of picky, because some of that, there can be a lot of different options in these programs, like animated hotspots, things that are kind of jumping around or flashing or stuff with sound. But having a lot of them can make it kind of confusing to use or impede kind of the user experience of the end user if you get too crazy with all the hotspot interactions. In these 360 or these virtual tour editors, generally they'll talk about hotspots and then they'll talk about the skin of the tour. And usually this means the elements of the virtual tour that are kind of seen in every single image. So the skin is overlaid onto every photo or video that you place in the tour. So for example, in these examples, I've added into the skin kind of the logos that I want the viewer to see in every single image, or some kind of navigation tools. And these elements, you can generally edit them to fit your brand's visual style, for example, like these logos, colors, fonts, etc. Some important things to take into account when thinking of your virtual tour is where and what on is the virtual tour being viewed. So depending on the software, but at least from this 3D Vista software, they can be viewed on mobile devices, smartphones, as well as computers or VR headsets. However, each of these has different kinds of interaction methods. So for example, on a mobile, the screen's a lot smaller and you usually use your finger to swipe and tap on it. Whereas on a computer, you're viewing it on a screen and you might be using a mouse. On the other hand, VR headset is very different how you're viewing it, because then you can kind of spin around in place and you're using these handheld controllers to interact with the tour. So it's important to take into account what the interaction method is and what it's being viewed on before you make the tour, to make sure it's kind of optimized. Other example would be if you have really small text and you want it to be viewed on a mobile, then the text might be too small for someone to read, whereas on the computer it looks really big. Also important to take into account, where is it being used? Is it in a public space or in someone's home? So if you wanted to, for example, add some kind of audio, it's important to take into account, like, can they hear it if they're in a public place, or is it really loud, or stuff like this. Another point is to think about who is going to be using the virtual tour and for what purposes. I gave the example earlier of realtors using virtual tours to kind of present apartments that they are renting or selling. in that kind of context, they obviously want to show the space and the possibilities of the space. And they already know the people who are looking at it, what they are kind of interested in seeing. They want to see the rooms, they want to see the materials used, they want to see the space. However, in some other options, let's say you were a company and you wanted to show off your products, for example, or your services, then in that kind of case, you might want to use different kind of interaction methods. Maybe the environment shown in the virtual tour isn't as important, but you should add in interactions that highlight those products and services. Maybe you press something and then you get some extra information about the price or the materials used, or maybe you could add some kind of links to your website. You could have in the virtual tour show some kind of product, and when I click on it, it would take me straight to your website where I can order it, for example. So it's important to think, what are you using it for and who is going to be using it? Is it the customer, or is it your colleague, or is it a child, adult? Important to take into account what they will be doing when they use it. Can they understand what they need to do? And then what interactions should the virtual tour have? So I kind of already took on that. So depending on what you want people to do and learn when they're using it. So generally, virtual tours, especially in this like realtor sense, is moving from one image to another because they're presenting the space. But there's nothing like, you could have just one image with a lot of products in it, for example. Is it necessary to move from one space to another? Or if you want to just have the information, could it be in some kind of other way? I don't know. So think of these before you start doing the tour, and then you'll get a better tour in the end. And then implementing a 360 virtual tour. So depending on the program that you're using, virtual tours could be downloaded and integrated directly onto your website structure. So for example, 3D Vista virtual tour, you can download the program, so it's a single pay software, and then you can download it and then upload it onto your website using this kind of HTML format. However, some other programs, and also this 3D Vista, offers a hosting service, but you have to cost extra. And if I remember correctly, for example, in Matterport, you can't put it onto your own website, but you have to use their hosting service. So depending on kind of how you want to use the 360 tour, also look at the program or the software you want to use. But yeah, in summary, virtual tours can be excellent tools for visualizing and developing ideas, for example. Here's some virtual tours that I've had a part making in our X-Story project. You can access them from these links, and there's also should be videos about these on this YouTube channel that this live is on. So there's some videos showing how to use them. Yes, this QR code, you can also see our project, and now we will answer some questions. Thank you.
Yeah, there are some questions in the chat. You should be able to see them from the. Okay, so have I found any free and/or open source software solutions for building 360 panorama tours, or are all of these closed proprietary applications? So I haven't done very much benchmarking personally on these programs, but I'm pretty sure you can find some that are free. However, they might not have that many things you can do on them, so they're more like demo versions. But even this 3D Vista, you can get a free demo version. However, you can't get any usable virtual tour out of it, but you can test it before you buy it. This Pano 2 VR and also this 3D Vista, they're one-time payment, so that's good about them. But a lot of the other programs like this Matterport, it's a subscription-based service. So it can be a bit difficult to find a good one, but if you do some searching, you can probably find different ones. Then, are there VR interaction schemes with only directional head tracking? For example, look at this object for 3 seconds to read here, see more information about it. So this 3D Vista virtual tour has some interactions that are specifically aimed for use in VR, which I kind of like. I don't know about this exact example that you suggested, but there is some, at least this program has interactions that are designed for use in VR. I know that there's some also that work that when you're looking a certain way, it triggers like audio to play from that kind of direction. So I'm sure they could have something similar to that, as they already have this kind of look this way and an interaction starts based on where you're looking. So maybe that could be possible. And do you think that that could provide better usability and accessibility for people that have problems with hand controllers? Yeah, I think also that's a good point. But I haven't tried it myself that much yet. But I'll try and look into it. But I know that in 3D Vista Virtual Pro, there is some VR specific ones. Okay, I work as virtual museum. Use chroma key green screen videos to embed virtual avatar to guides. Yes, yeah. I've also noticed that you can use this kind of similar things. Also, I know that in this 3D Vista virtual tour, you can also embed like 3D models, for example, to certain. And someone is commenting, Momento 360 has free subscription that allows to create up to 20 collections. So yeah, maybe that could be something if you're interested in testing. Do we have any other comments? No? Okay, well, thank you for listening. And if you have any further questions, you can email me at my email here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so hello everyone. I will also be holding this part of the presentation in English. I will be talking about Gaussian splatting for environment capture. So this is a way of capturing environments outside of 360 or photogrammetry. It's a reasonably new technology which has its own advantages and disadvantages, but for environments, it's, I would say, better for many reasons. So for Gaussian splatting, it's a graphics rendering technique. So the scene is consisting of 3D Gaussians, which are these like shard-like structures that can look different based on where they are, and they consist, if you know what voxels are, it's a fairly similar technology, but somewhat more like performant, I would say. Of course, voxels can be very performant, but this can be used for environment capture in much easier ways than voxels, for example. And in photogrammetry, which is very adjacent to the Gaussian splattings, that is also a good tool, but for capturing big environments, it's quite difficult because you have to get so much detail at once, and also for many photogrammetry programs, it's not really possible to run add more data afterwards. So for Gaussian splattings, you can bring more video or bring more pictures into the software afterwards, at least for the PC programs. For the phone apps, you just photograph it in the app and that's it. You cannot edit it, or you can edit it, but you cannot add more detail afterwards. So it's a very flexible technology. So here there are like content examples. So you can see an environment we photographed in the nearby the university, and I would say this is fairly optimal environment because the variance in the landscape and in the textures in the landscapes is like very dense. So you can easily the program can easily understand from the photos and from the video, like what do you like, where each detail is. So in the zoomed image, you can see it's still fairly detailed, but in the more zoomed version on the bottom, you can see that it starts to deteriorate to like I would say, this kind of asbestos-looking texture, which I always use for the example. So those are the individual Gaussians, these kind of shards, which consist and make up the whole environment. And here you can see that when I'm looking in from farther away, the tree in the middle-ish, you can see there that that's the area where I photographed. I went around the tree, and then anything outside of where I photographed, of course, is not visible and it's not functional. And the farther away you get from the place where you took the footage, in this case video, the less detailed it becomes. But when you look at it from where you photographed or videoed, it looks clear that the distance, or at least clear enough for distant scenery. So the process of Gaussian splatting for environments and for objects as well, which is also a fairly useful tool in many cases, but I feel that for environments it's much more, it has special advantages as compared to the alternatives. So you take video and look at all the angles of the area, and then bring it to, in this case, in this example, JawSet PostShot, which is a PC program, a free one, and it automatically gets all the settings for you and then generates the area based on the video. You just have to make sure it's photographed properly. If you want to try this for yourself, there are apps like Career Engine, Luma AI, and Polycam. Polycam has a free option for this. Others are paid per scan, but it's not very expensive. So you can give it a try for object scanning, but these are not optimized for environment capture. So if you want to create an environment, then use the PC program. It does require quite a powerful PC or much patience for waiting for it to process. So even a weaker PC can do it, but you'll wait for hours and hours. But you have good options there. And here is the UI for the JawSet PostShot. So you just bring the video, and you can add. You can see here in the stop training after. So you can add a bit more, thousands of steps there if you want to increase the quality. It of course doesn't increase beyond what you have actually photographed, but otherwise you can properly increase the quality somewhat for it to train a bit longer. Otherwise it chooses all the settings properly without you having to really touch anything, and you can just drag and drop them here, and that's it. So it's a fairly easy process anyway. And here you can see what it does with the data. So it first generates where have you taken the photos. So here you can see, if you look at the left and the right images, you can see that I circled around the tree and looked at the tree, and I also looked outside to the distance, and it generates the first where the cameras are, and based on those positions it references each point in the point cloud from a different angle, so it knows where it is. So this is a very, very useful tool for that kind of capture. And here you can see the final result. So you can still see the camera positions, and the point cloud is hidden by the mesh, the kind of Gaussian scene itself. But this is how it takes shape, and you can also this why I said it takes shape is that it like over time it clarifies and clarifies and clarifies the image, and once it's done, it's as clear as it's going to get. So you will see that if it's a complete mess from the start, then you can take more photos or take more video of the scene if you are still there and like get a better result. And you can add as many videos or pictures as you want into the scene. Yeah, but here for the guidelines of photography or videography for the capture, keep, if you are taking video or pictures, keep it like do not shake the camera so they don't get blurry. Keep the white balance and exposure of the pictures even. So if they differ too much from each other, then the software doesn't know like that is the same detail if it looks too different between two pictures. So that's why you want them like even between pictures. And just make sure that there's as high of a dynamic range as you can get, because then you can get all the details in the scene, even because if there's, let's say the sky is burnt out in the picture, then he doesn't know where it is, and there might be like artifacts in the sky because of that. So make sure that you get as much data from everywhere. And if you are choosing environments, and it doesn't matter, to choose the kind of environment where there's lots of detail and the kind of day where you can see properly. Yeah. And you get the info pamphlet after this, which has all this data. And especially if these two are like challenging environments. So there's a winter environment here, which has even snow, which is difficult to photograph, but I took this with photos. So I took careful photos from every angle and make sure that the dynamic range was good. And same with dim lean-to here. I took the photos with a tablet, but I made sure to take them so that you can always see the detail even in the dim areas. And there would have been no chance to do that if it was if I took video, because video you cannot set the exposure properly. You have more options with the photographs. So even though it takes longer and it's harder for environments, it's easier to do it with photos in a dim environment, because otherwise you don't get anything usable out of it. And these can be used in like game assets, video productions, and in 360 tours, game engines, everything. So they can be used in the same way as like any mesh, but as long as you don't want to edit them too much, you can clean them up, but they are still captures, so you cannot edit them with the same tools as with meshes. But otherwise, this is the plan. Yeah, and you can Blender, Adobe Premiere, Unreal Engine, Unity, all of these tools support the gsplat files, which is the generic file format for this kind of Gaussian splatting. But yeah, I think this is mostly what I had to say. Thank you. If there's any questions, you can ask them now. Okay, if not, we can move to the next presenter. Thank you.
Mistä tuossa?
Se.
Se onko?
Niin.
Joo, miten tuossa on se?
Tuolta. Siitä vaan. No niin.
So
Greetings everyone, my name is Joachim Nivola, and today I will give a presentation about VR multi-user experience. And what the multi-user experience really like contains is the actual like learning part for it, because this is also new for me, and also the development part for the prototype. And the game engines I decided to use for this are Unreal Engine and Unity. And the reason why is because they are the most popular engines on the market. And I noted some similarities and some general differences between the two engines, and also wrote some advices for the development that can be useful for everyone. So the first similarity between the engines is that they both share really good templates, and these VR templates are really nice from like developer viewpoint, because they speed up the initial process of like creating the prototypes. But where the difference really comes, the first difference is that like Unity offers kind of both the VR and also the like multi-user aspect in the same template. So that is like that is something that Unreal doesn't directly have, but it is still like very much possible to do like multiplayer or like the multi-user prototypes on Unreal as well, but you need to manually kind of construct the functionality with the nodes that Unreal Engine supports. And both of the game engines have similar type of like server type, which is an authoritative server type. And in like a simplified version of it is that every function that is done on the like prototype has to go through the server so that it is executed. For example, if there was a prototype of cinema and one user would want to skip the video maybe like 5 seconds, the client would have to send a remote procedure call to the server, so that every user would be sent the same message of like skipping the video. And the different types of authoritative servers are the client-hosted listen server and the dedicated server. And the client-hosted listen server is essentially that for example, a user hosts the server and everyone else can join to the network, but the one who like hosts is the server, or is the server is kind of the one that handles all the logic. And the dedicated server is like a server type where where there is no like graphical output. It basically just handles all the like calculations and functions on the network. And the difference between Unreal Engine and Unity is that Unity 6.0 and onwards, it is possible to make like a peer-to-peer server types, where it is like a distributed server, so that the authority is spread evenly between all the users. And this is not directly mentioned anywhere in Unreal Engine's the network guides that it is possible, but I did see in like Unreal Engine's forums that there is like ways to do it, but it requires some like jumping through like hoops. And the prototype I built, I couldn't make the map for today, so I couldn't really present about it much. But it is meant to be like the space station where like, the users can walk around, interact with objects, and these objects are synchronized. So you can, for example, throw something and the other users can see the same object. And the space around the space station is basically like a video player that is projected in the inside area of the sphere. And the reason why it's made by that is so that the space looks like it's moving. It makes it feel like the environment is or the space is moving, and it's more dynamic. The prototype I have built, the initial one is made on Unity because it's I'm more experienced on Unity, but I will eventually also build a version for Unreal Engine so I can tell about it more. Useful things I've learned so far on Unity's side is that, for example, if you have a custom character, which in the template version on Unity, it's only the head and hands that are on the are visible. So if you want to have a custom character with a custom rig, for example, you need to build it when you connect to the network for the host and for yourself, so that everyone sees it on the network. And that applies to almost all of the different functionalities. For example, if I bring the same cinema example, when a client joins to the server has to send the information to the newly joined client that we are on this part of the movie currently. And the client has to send the request to the server that where we are currently on the movie. And also what I noticed around the part when I started is that there is the possibility to do something or create something on the offline state and then use that object on the online state or the state when you connect to the network. And this is used in the template with the VR controllers and headset, which are initialized on the point when you launch the game or the prototype. But when you connect to the online, you only use the VR on the, you use the VR controllers and the headset, and then you add those values to the object that is on the online. So you don't directly add the new controllers and headset to the network, but you use the ones you have already initialized when you launch the prototype. And best practice in development is that if you design the prototype or any VR game that is meant to be first made on offline or for local play, it is really good idea to stay with the idea of keeping it offline, because it becomes a really handful task to convert everything to work in the online environment. And it is even mentioned in the official Unreal Engine guide that it's not it should, or it's guided to stay with the course of keeping things offline if you do it. And some of the things should be kept strictly client-sided. So it is really bad idea to add something like sound or music or lighting into the game and synchronize it across all the users, because there might be different settings for all the different users devices. So if you have the, for example, volume for a video to max and it's synchronized to all the users, if a user joins with 100% volume, you will probably blast their ears with insanely high sound. So that's a really bad idea. And some of the photos I took from the first left up photo is the default template map that comes with the Unity, the Unity VR multiplayer, and it has a couple of mini games with a wall climbing and whack-a-mole, and there's also a slingshot game on the right down corner, and there's also the ladders on the sides of the wall that you can climb, and there was some sort of a gun that can shoot balls on the middle area, right where there's the circle. And then what I was able to do yesterday was finally make the two different characters, so the host and client, to make it so that their hands don't merge together, so that they have their own hands and they work with their so that the rigs are working with the hands, so that hand movements are working as intended. And on the third photo on the right, it is the player on the picture, and it has the video player behind it with the space in it. But that was my presentation, and if you have any question, this is the time to ask me. I don't see anything. Yeah.
Okay. If there's no questions, we can move to the next presenter. Haluatko kamerako vai?
Joo. No niin, tervehdys kaikille. Olen Enremellä ja tutkimusavustaja täällä Lapin yliopistossa. Ja itse esittelen teille biopalautetta laajennetussa todellisuudessa. Ja eilen mietittiin, että pitääkö sanoa biofeedback vai biopalaute, mutta tämä on se hyvä suomeksi sitten varmaan tämä biopalaute. Ja tässä keskityn kahteen minun tutkimukseen liittyen miten voi käyttää laajennettua todellisuutta vaikkapa sykkeen mittaamisessa ja että miten se vaikuttaa sitten käyttäjään ja että miten stressin alla sitten vaikka silmän räpäytykset ja silmän liikkuminen muuttuu. Niin, mitä on sitten biopalaute? Sehän on kehon fysiologisten signaalien mittaamista reaaliajassa. Ja sillähän on tarkoitus saada käyttäjät tietoiseksi, että mitä minussa tapahtuu. Ja mitä nämä fysiologiset signaalit voi olla, että voi olla tämä syke, sitten silmien liikkuminen, silmien asennot, räpsytys, nopeus. Sitten aivoaallot ja muita voi olla vaikka ihonjohtavuus ja lihasjännitys ja hengitys esimerkiksi. Sitten laajennettu todellisuus tai XR, sehän niin kuin aikaisemminkin on jo todettu, että on nämä AR, VR ja MR. Ja VR eli virtuaalitodellisuushan on näistä sinänsä silleen poikkeuksellinen, että se on lähinnä virtuaalista ja sitten näihin muihin liittyy enemmän tämmöistä, että on sekä virtuaalista että näkee sitä oikeakin todellisuutta. Mutta mitä sitten voisi olla tällaiset, että miten tutkitaan sekä biopalautetta että laajennettua todellisuutta sitten yhdessä. Ja itse lähdin 1,5 vuotta sitten tutkimaan tällaista, miten syke voisi näkyä sitten XR:ssä. Tämä voi olla ehkä minun sykkeeni tällä hetkellä. Mutta joo, lähtökohdat oli sellaiset, että itsellä ei ollut kovinkaan paljon kokemusta pelimoottoreiden kehittämisestä, mutta sitten ei se auta muuta kuin lähteä kehittämään. Tarvittiin sitten tällainen sykemittari, joka oli tämmöinen yhteistyökelpoinen tällaisten jo olemassa olevien sovellusten kanssa. Hybrid oli semmoinen sovellus, jonka pystyi yhdistämään pluginina sitten tähän Unreal-pelimoottoriin. Ja sitten siihen sopii myös tämä Polar Verity Sense sykemittari. Sitten MetaQuest 3 on sitten tällainen virtuaalitodellisuuslasit, millä pystyy sitten näkemään varsin hyvin tätä niin kuin oikeata maailmaa. Ja sitten siihen pystyy sitten pelimoottorilla rakentamaan sitä uutta maailmaa tilalle tai sen päälle. Tässä on sitten jotain koodia, mitä tuli tehtyä. Vasemmalla yläkulmassa näkee tätä Hybrid-sovelluksen omaa sisältöä ja että miten tämä syke tulee näkyville. Ja sitten se tietenkin oikealla puolella näkyy sitten tällainen vinjetti, joka sitten muuttuu niin kuin tälle katsojalle tummentaen sitten niin kuin näön reunoja. Ja sitten vasemmalla alhaalla on sitten tämä ikään kuin kamera, mistä näkee käyttäjä. Ja siinä näkyykin tällaista pientä käyttöliittymää, että siinä on, voi näyttää hyvin pieneltä, mutta ehkä kohta näette lisää. Lopputulos on sitten jotain tämän näköistä, eli käyttäjä kerää 12 kappaletta tällaisia leivoksia ympärimään labraa, ja sitten kun tämän skenaarion laittaa päälle, niin myös aika lähtee käyntiin ja näkee reaaliajassa, että mikä on oma syke ja että miten se sitten muuttuu tässä fyysisessä skenaariossa. Ja siitä ollaan sitten julkaistu tällainen paperi MUM-konferenssiin ja tuolta linkistä voi sitten saada minä voi vielä kommentteihin kirjoittaa sen linkin sitten myöhemmin, niin sitä pääsee katsomaan. Ja lopputulemathan oli sitten semmoista, että siitä saa immersiivistä kokemusta, mutta joillekin voi olla sitten ahdistavaa ja tällaista, että jos se oma näkökenttä muuttuu ja sykkeen kasvaessa siis se näkökynttä menee hyvin pieneksi. Ja että tuli tällaisia coping-mekanismeja, joilla sitten yrittää saada omaa sykettä laskemaan, että pääsee keräämään loputkin leivokset. Sitten uusin testi on sitten tällainen silmien räpäytyksien tutkiminen stressitilanteessa. Ja oli 2 polkua, mitä oli mahdollista lähteä rakentamaan. Ja oli MetaQuest Pro-laseilla, mutta siinä käytännössä koin aluksi, että sillä voisi olla helppo alkaa rakentamaan koodilla sellaista omaa että miten voi kerätä silmän räpäytyksiä tai eye openness dataa. Ja sitten toinen tie oli varjon omat lasit XR3. Sellaiset kerta meiltä laboratoriosta löytyykin, niin sekin olisi ollut sitten tie. Ja tietenkin sitten Unreal Engine 5. Tässä lähdin siihen MetaQuestille rakentamaan omaa koodia ja siinä on tällainen koodi, joka luo aina tekstitiedoston silloin kun ajaa ohjelman. Ja sitten se luo aina joka ikisen niin kuin framein kohdalla tekstitiedostoon sitten tämmöiset tunnisteet, että mitä on tapahtunut tietyllä frameillä millisekunnin tarkasti. Ja sitten alempana on sitten tämä, että mitä on se silmän data, kuinka kiinni silmä on asteikolla 0-1. Ja tuolla oikealla sitten näkeekin sitä silmädataa, mutta sitten tähän liittyy sitten tiettyjä ongelmia ja setbackkejä, niin varjolla oli sitten oma sisäänrakennettu varjobase-ohjelma, joka automaattisesti itse mittaa näitä dataa, mutta se on varsin raskasta dataa, mutta sekin pitää tulkita. Tässä on sitä testiä, mitä on ihan viime aikoina tehty ja ollaan laitettu labraan tällainen lankku, jota pitkin sitten tulee kävellä, mutta sitten mitä käyttäjä näkee virtuaalitodellisuudessa on sitten tämä tämmöinen hyvin pelottavan näköinen skenaario, missä on tällainen rotko liekkeineen ja toinen skenaario, jonka oletin olevan rauhallisempi, mutta jotkut on kokenut tämänkin ehkä ahdistavaksi. Mutta joo, tällaista täällä on tehty ja kiitokset kaikille. Onkohan mahdollisesti tullut jotain kommenttia?
Mm-hmm. Se näkyy siinä, jos on, niin ei se.
Selvä homma. Jes, kiitoksia paljon.
Niin laitan, I will put the camera on and off there. Okay, now the camera is on. Yeah.
Hello. Okay. Yes, we can. Hello, I'm Jaya, and the topic I'm talking about is priming effects by virtual reality. So first, you might confuse what is priming. And priming is a concept in psychology to describe how exposed to one stimulus that might influence the response in a subsequent stimulus without a conscious guideline or intention. So here is if you don't know or you think it's okay, so difficult to understand, then there is a movie, and I just found a short. How can I open the link?
Maybe. Wait a second. We'll set up a link. Wait a second. I'll sit. Okay.
You just search from Google.
Yeah. Wait a second. We can set it up. I'll just. So. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, set it up. So I'll move it.
This one.
Yeah. Okay, so now we have a video. We can show it now. It should have the sound. If no, then let's see.
Okay.
Oh, Jude, what are you doing? I'm good work.
Yeah.
Not a problem, my friend.
It's a short video from the movie called Focus from 2015. There's two guys. One guy asked the millionaire to select a number from 1 to 100 players, and then he will guess which number.
That's fucking crazy.
Then the millionaire think, okay, that's crazy, and but reject the proposal. Then another guy said, okay, let the lady to guess which number he selected. Then the millionaire thinks, okay, that's a good deal. Then they select the number, targeting on 55. Here is the player.
stole many a man, sold away.
Number 55.
Then they start to explain how and why they select the right number.
From the moment he left his hotel room, he's been crying, programming his subconscious. He's been saying the number 55 all day long. On the elevator, in the lobby, even a stick hanging on the doormat. Not only that,
So the number 55 as a priming effect influence his subconscious in the whole day.
but he does.
So finally, the millionaire select the number 55 with a familiar face.
And it's not only what he sees, what he hears. The Mandarin word for 5 is wu. There are 124 wu-wus in sympathy for the devil. Now he's not registering it, but it's all there. So when he picks up those binoculars, looks out over the field, sees a familiar face with the number 55 on the jersey,
we can have to stop it.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
He thinks it's intuitive.
Yeah, it just says because it's copyrighted material. It's on YouTube, so it's good to show a clip, but let's continue.
Okay.
Yeah, they got the idea from there.
Okay. So that's a priming, and in the following, okay, we are easy to understand. But I still put the definition, which kind of like a computer-generated simulation environment that enables individuals to experience it in a scene of present immersion and engagement with the stimulated world, and how to use virtual reality for the priming effects, especially compared to other media, because it could provide higher immersion than written text or videos, because the written text or videos is kind of like a popular way nowadays even in the research and in daily life. But virtual reality provide more immersion and enhancing the sense of presence, immersion, and engagement rather than other ways of media. So what can we do by priming using virtual reality in design? In this topic, first we are more focused on creativity, because we think creativity drives the development of new ideas, products, and innovation that stand out in a competitive marketing. But it influenced by many factors. We can see from here, from the left to the right, by the press, how the atmosphere, how about the organization and history, familiar traditions, all of this influenced us. And also human as a main factor in design, and also everything could be creative by person. So our personality, our previous knowledge, and everything influenced the whole process during the design. Also, the process in different way, like how we generate ideas, how we create the products, all influenced our outcome. Finally, the products. If you think sometimes we talk about products, okay, when product is productive, then the design process is end, but it's not. Because sometimes a product maybe you are not satisfied with it, then you will go back and searching ideas and to go through the whole process again. So, but regarding the influence, all the influence on creativity and the design, we are more focused on human as it's a main factor here. So we also think about why the people have different ideas, and we found the culture is a kind of main key factors influenced the design and the creativity. So people might confuse what is the culture, because it's a broad concept, Most of the time when we talk about culture, is a social behavior or norms found in human society and knowledge, such as how we are queuing. As the left photo, you see is very normal in Finland. And what are the beliefs, arts, and the games of people in specific groups, such as the game on the right corner. That's the first time I saw it when I came to here. And yes, all of these are part of culture as an external manifestation of culture and influenced us, how we programming information, how we talk to people, how our performance, even in design, also included in design. So in cultural studies, and a widely accepted framework is called Hofstadter cultural dimension theory, and it identified 6 distinctive cultural dimensions, include the power distance. Like here is no hierarchy, so people here is lower power distance, and uncertainty avoidance, individualism versus collectivism, and so on. So based on that, we conduct a study, and we found the uncertainty avoidance influenced our design creativity in ideation. Like when people have a higher uncertainty avoidance, that means they like a safe solution. And the ideas when they generate it is more workability but less originality. And when people with a lower uncertainty avoidance value, and the ideas they generated with a higher originality, let's say it's very novel, but with lower workability. That means the ideas might not be able to produce or cannot be the real product. It's just a concept. So based on that, we think, okay, the idea only have the originality or with the usability in usefulness is not enough. We need to keep a balance between useful and novel. So we try to prime the people's uncertainty avoidance value to be in the middle level. Then, so we using the virtual reality as a kind of the VR storytelling, and prime their uncertainty avoidance value, and we hope we can change a little bit their uncertainty avoidance value to make them to design the ideas with novelty and usefulness. So that is the story we used in the study, and it described as a coming war that the king have to choose one warriors to lead the war, and there are 2 options. And for priming the people's uncertainty avoidance value low, we choose a warrior who is young, doesn't have so many experiences, but the king said, think about, okay, we should give the young people a chance to train them, to let them know how to lead a war. And for priming their uncertainty avoidance high, and the king also choose a warrior who have a lot of experiences, win many wars. So it's kind of like a safe option. Choose that guy, it means they will win the war. Of course, the results, they win the war. So that is the results from the study. The left part is we targeting priming their uncertainty avoidance value high. So we can see almost half of them at least increase their uncertainty avoidance value. And the right side is we targeting to priming their uncertainty avoidance value low. We can see it's lower. So the number is 1.45 increased and 3.5 value lower. So finally, we are happy with the results. And the figure shows when they have a lower uncertainty avoidance value, their idea is novelty but less workability. And as the pink icon, and the people with uncertainty avoidance value high, their ideas very workability but less novelty. So we are targeting Prime there to be this green icon. And yes, we did that, and the results as our expected and the ideas they generated keep the balance between novelty and workability. That's it. Okay, that's it. Thank you, Andrea. Any questions?
There doesn't seem to be any questions in the chat.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for participating in our webinar. And here's the QR code and link for the feedback. So we hope you can give us feedback about how did you like the presentation, or were they useful for you, or what technologies you would like to know more about, or what you would like to try in your business or in your work. And after you have finished this webinar, there is also option for you to leave your email address, and we can send you this best practice booklet where we have all these topics we discussed today, and also a little bit easy methods how to go forward with these technologies. So thank you everyone.